these guys. I like our group. Like I've said all along, I'm confident in them. They're all super excited to get this season going, and yeah, I like this group a lot.
Welcome into Judd's Hockey Show. They're excited, Bill Guerin. How about Judd and Declan? Hockey season arrived with 2 games last night. The Wild will open on Friday against the Ducks in Anaheim, and then Saturday travel bus to go play the Los Angeles Kings. I believe the home opener, if I'm not mistaken, is next, Tuesday night, Dex?
Yeah.
But yes, the Wild season is finally here, and that means Wild predictions. That means some thoughts of opening night. And of course, the first 2 games were shown by ESPN, including the Seattle Kraken. And I want to get to their coverage eventually here, Dex. But I think we start by doing exactly what we did last year.
Yeah.
And probably keeping better track, because I don't know that I kept great track of this. But previewing the Wild season by making I'm sure, what would be considered to be incredibly bold predictions. How does that sound?
I like this. I love this. We did this last year. Let's see. I believe I was correct about Joel Eriksson-Ek breaking out offensively. So we'll see what happens this year.
All right. So let's start with this. Yeah. And I don't think I don't think I saved my predictions, which I need to. Like I've got them right. In fact, I think I put them on a legal pad last year. That's a big mistake.
Big mistake.
You can't write them down, because then you throw the legal pad away and you're like, I don't need these notes. And you're like, oh, there go my Wild predictions. So I've got them on my Gmail this year. So if I'm right, I'll bring them up. If I'm wrong, I can't escape them.
You got it.
All right. Wild season preview time. Dex, we'll start with you in each case, and then I will go after you. Okay. All right. Let's start with some individual stuff here.
Yeah.
Who is going to be the leader in points after we play 82 games? Who will lead the Wild in points?
So I'm not gonna go out of left field, because I think this guy will rack up plenty of assists. But I'm gonna go with Matt Zuccarello. I'm actually gonna say Matt Zuccarello. This was a guy who finally last year became the player that we saw with the New York Rangers for a very, very long time. He had an up and down first season with Minnesota. And I just think with playing with Kirill Kaprizov over 82 games this year, I believe he played with Chris Drider a lot in New York. I mean, he racked up a ton of points with him as well. I think Kirill Kaprizov is going to benefit from Matt Zuccarello, but Zook's going to be setting him up a ton. Now, Matt doesn't shoot a lot. I wish he would shoot more, but he doesn't shoot a lot, and his job is facilitating, so I can't really get too upset about him. He has shot about a half time less than he did when he was in New York, so he did average a little over 2 shots per game. In his Wild tenure, he's about 1.5. But I just think with his playmaking ability, setting up Kirill Kaprizov for an 82-game season, which we haven't accomplished in the NHL in the last 3 years, or last 3 seasons, basically. I think Matt Zuccarello is going to be my guy who leads the team in points this year. Who do you got?
And points? Can you pin?
Points.
No, but can you pinpoint a number for me? Because I have pinpointed numbers.
Oh, okay. All right. I will say
Matt's will have
67.
Oh, wow.
I think he's going to have a boatload of assists, dude. I don't know if he can get to 20 goals, great. I think he's going to have a boatload of assists. So 67.
I am shooting much higher than you, my good friend. And not surprisingly, I'm going with Kirill Kaprizov, who is a goal scorer, but eureka, a facilitator too. And I expect this top line of as you said, Zuccarello, Eriksson-Ek, and Kaprizov to really click. So I am going to say Kirill Kaprizov, who I think is going to emerge into through the course of an entire season, one of the top 10 players in this entire league. I think he's going to be, but I think he's going to solidify himself now. Like, he's not a rookie. He's not going to surprise teams. And I am going with the huge number. I'm going with 101 points for Kirill Kaprizov. I think he has 101 points. I think when you finally got your star, you finally got the guy where you look at the top of you pick up your morning paper. You pick up your morning paper and you think to yourself, I'm going to go to the stats in my morning paper and check it out. You see McDavid, Matthews, Crosby, Draisaitl, right? McKinnon. I think Kaprizov gets into that rare air of, oh my goodness, Kirill Kaprizov's in the leaders in my morning paper in points, and I'm going to say he gets 101 points, which is
wow, dude,
101 points for Kirill Kaprizov.
101.
101 points. I was looking up some past statistics. I think we need to reframe and see this differently. And I think if he can, of course, health provided, if he can remain on the ice for 80 games or so, I think he gets, between his ability to set up guys, between his ability to score, and here's the hidden thing, or it's not hidden. Here's the thing I don't think we're discussing enough. Declan, that first power play unit should score a ton. Like, it should score a ton. And I think Kaprizov actually is going to score, but I also think that he's going to set goals up as well. So I think the Wild will have, with that first PP unit, a very, very lethal group of 5 there. And Kirill Kaprizov is the star of that group as well. 101 points for Kirill.
Wowzer. Just for reference, so last year, Kirill Kaprizov in the 55 games had 51 points. You map that out over 82, that would be 76 points.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be 76 points over an 82-game season if you took Kirill Kaprizov's numbers through 56 games and prorated it to 82. Mm-hmm. So you're saying even 25 more points for Kirill. He takes even a bigger step forward.
I'm saying he had a really, really great start, at least until the playoffs. Well, that great start now, he's more comfortable. He gets to play an entire year here. I think he's a star. I really do.
I agree.
Like, I think he is the type of guy that we, as people who follow the league, aren't used to seeing in the Wild sweater. And so my expectations aren't, well, he's going to be he's going to be a really good Wild player. My expectations are he's a top player or will turn into one in the entire league.
I agree. Okay.
All right. Leader in goals for the Minnesota Wild.
Easy one for me. I'm going to go with Kirill Kaprizov. I'm going to set it at 39. I'm going to set it at 39. Right now, sportsbooks, FanDuel has him at 35.5 for the upcoming season, which is a good amount. I mean, how many Wild players have gone into the season with projections of 35.5 goals for an over-under in the last 5-6 years? I can answer you. No one.
I was going to say
nobody. No. I think he hits the over. He's got, now that he's had his first season in, the book's out on him a little bit. I think 102 points, although I love the optimism because
101.
That
Don't give me
101 points. 101 points. I love the optimism. I think the book gets figured out a little bit on him, and I still think he has a very productive year. If all things go according to plan, he should get Hart Trophy votes this year, Judd. There's no reason why he shouldn't. But I'm going to go with 39 goals for Kirill Kaprizov.
I'm very close to you. 42 goals.
Okay.
So I mean, I have him on a huge year, but I don't see why not. Like, I don't now the playoffs are different. The playoffs, there's less room and space. And we certainly saw that in the first round against the Golden Knights last year, right? Where the playoffs change things because teams are focused on stopping you every night. But during the course of the season in this league, it's hard to stop guys like this. Like you can be like, we're going to shut down Ovechkin, but you're going to play him for 3 periods and he's probably going to score a goal or two. So I think what you're saying about the book being out on Kaprizov is probably very true potentially when we get to the playoffs again, because then it's essentially we are going to be prepared to play 7 games against this guy and wear him down as much as possible. But in this league where you're playing all the time and the teams change and things. So yeah, I'm very close to you. I say 42 goals for Kirill Kaprizov. You say 39. I know you hate this, but I wanted to do it.
Okay.
Because the kids love it. Kids love it.
Yeah.
They got a name for it. Who leads the Wild in PIMs? And for you old people out there, that's penalty minutes. Who's the PIM leader?
I think the old people love it. I don't know if the kids really care.
I think the kids like it because I think they call them PIMs. I think the kids call them PIMs, man.
I think you got the wrong guy there. For me, I think it's probably pretty natural because this dude just drops the gloves a ton. I think Marcus Fellino leads this team in PIMs. I think that one's just pretty obvious. And not because he takes a lot of penalties, but because he gets in fights and he gets in scraps and he gets the 5-minute majors and sometimes misconducts, and that just easily racks up penalty minutes. For me, it's Marcus Fellino.
I
thought it'd
agree.
be. My gut told me, why don't we just go with Kulikov, right? Like a third pairing defenseman who was a Russian, and I'm sure he's got a mean streak. Kulikov, the most penalty minutes he's ever had in a season is 66, and that was 8-9 years ago when he was 23 years old.
Yeah.
So I originally thought maybe Kulikov, like a bottom six guy. I don't think Jordy Ben could play enough for him to be the leader in penalty minutes. I can see him taking a bunch of penalty minutes
too. Yeah.
But
right.
I think Foligno's probably the safest option. I'll go with Marcus Foligno.
Yeah, and he's got the A now, right? So like he works hard every night, but now he's probably going to come to the defensive guys more if that is possible. I agree. I think it is Marcus Foligno as well. All right, more exciting topic. End of the year. Who ends up being Rookie of the Year on this team?
So he still technically qualifies. So I'm actually going to go with Kaapo Kähkönen.
Oh.
He still qualifies for Rookie of the Year this year.
For those of you watching, I'll give you a little bit of a visual.
Little Kaapo, a little trading card there. Look at that.
Yeah, These cards are hard to find, by the way. Mm-hmm.
Kaapo had a really weird year last season. He had a stretch where he literally was the best goalie in the NHL. And then he had another stretch where he looked like the worst goalie in the league. Preseason hasn't been too kind to him either.
No, but
he's young. He's 25. Cam Talbot's the one here. You know, at one point last year, Judd, we were debating who's 1A and who's 1B. You and I are flip-flopping through the first half of last season of who is 1A and who's 1B. Right. We didn't know yet because both of them had stretches of dominant play. Both of them had stretches of poor play. I think Kaapo comes in here, and Talbot, I'm just curious on. I think the Talbot we got is the ceiling and the highest expectation we can expect from Cam Talbot. Mm-hmm. I don't think there is a next level to his game. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's a level that what we saw last year is who Cam Talbot is. He stabilizes things. He's a nice goalie. You got four good defensemen still a good top four defensemen in front of him. It should make life easier for him, and that's what Talbot delivered. The Wild needed average goaltending last year after being disastrous a year and a half before. That's what the Wild got. They got solid, average, decent goaltending.
Solid's a good word.
But I think Kaapo gets an extended look, and I think Kaapo Kähkönen gets the Rookie of the Year. The issue is, like, I would love to say, you know, and I'm sure I'll hear from you in just a second here, but like Boldy and Rossi and Beckman, I would love for them to come up here and just light it on fire, and they're forwards, so they're naturally going to be more sexier players to pick. I just don't know yet how many games and how big of a way they factor in yet. So to me, it hinders my prediction of one of them being Rookie of the Year. But for me, I'm just going to go with Kaapo Kähkönen. I think he has a bounce back season and looks a lot better.
So I believe that the prognostication is Boldy with that fractured ankle out 4 to 6 weeks. So he's actually going to be back, you know, fairly soon as far as the season's concerned, but he clearly now is going to be sent down and start the season in Des Moines. Here's my prediction.
Okay.
Rookie of the Year. I think it's Marco Rossi, and here's why. Marco Rossi is going. I love the fact that he's not here right now because he's going to go down to Iowa. He's going to play. My guess is first line. My guess is he plays a ton. He's a special talent. Like, he's got special skills. And the thing that I love, at least if the exhibition games were any indication, Declan Goff, he works his ass off. He goes to the net. He crashes the boards. I hope he doesn't get hurt, but I also like the fact that he works hard and he's got a skill set that you can't teach. I think he goes and plays and starts the season in Iowa. I think he plays well, and I think he continues to improve. Here's a wild card. And you're more down on this guy than I am, and I liked what I saw in exhibition games, but I agree with you that he is who he is. Frederick Goudreau. Frederick Goudreau, I think, is a third or fourth line guy. And I think he deserves a job. And I like the fact he's not going to be the same guy that Bonino was in the room, because I thought that Ian Cole and Bonino in the room last season did a great job. But Bonino on the ice was meh, right? Like, he was going to be, I think, a second line or third line center. And then he really couldn't do that. And so he became a fourth line wing. Like, as far as what he brought on the ice, it was a very professional performance, but it didn't give you a lot. I think Frederick Goudreau, who the Wild got from the Predators through Pittsburgh, or Pittsburgh through, he's been around, and Dino knows him well. And I do think that he definitely, Goudreau has a role on this team, but I don't think it's playing ultimately with your guy, Kevin Fiala. Marco Rossi and Fiala would be really intriguing to watch. And I think Billy and Dean are going to get at least, man, if we did this, right? Like if we had a guy with the skill set and the talent of Marco Rossi playing on a line with a guy who might have a lot of faults, but at the end of the day, he can score goals. Goudreau's a serviceable workman-like player. Rossi's a special player. And so I think once Rossi gets his skates wet and gets some playing time and probably has success in the American Hockey League, he gets promoted. And I think once he's promoted, he strikes me as the type of guy who sticks here. And that allows Goudreau now to go down to, let's say, fourth line, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that, right? So I think Marco Rossi ultimately comes up here at some point, gets put on a line with Fiala, and we're all like, now that's what we're talking about when it comes to a guy feeding the puck to Declan's number one dude, Kevin Fiala.
I love that. And you know what? It dovetails perfect into my most improved player. Because to me, I think the most improved player for the Wild this year is going to be Kevin Fiala. Now, you could say, well, like, don't you know who Kevin Fiala is? He's an offensive juggernaut. He can be a quote-unquote game breaker. I'm going to say most improved, though, because I think he is going to come in here much more well-rounded. He's going to be playing on the penalty kill. And if it's not now, then also when? Like, when is Kevin Fiala going to then round out the defensive part of his game? This is a guy who comes in with a ton of fire and a ton of passion, and he's pissed off with how this offseason went, and I don't blame him. So playing with Frederick Goudreau to start, yeah, I agree. I don't think that's the best thing to serve his skill set. I would love for him to have Marco Rossi, maybe even one day or at some point in this season, Boldy, Rossi, Fiala, all on the same line. Maybe we open up a playoff series with that as a line.
Boldy,
and
Rossi,
Fiala,
Kaprizov.
And that is all I would love to see. But I think, Kevin, if you're not going to take the next step forward, when is it? And I think this is the perfect situation for him. He's going to come in with a ton of fire under his belly. We know he can score goals. This guy will score 30 goals. I had that and write that down as well. He's going to be a great offensive player. But they want him to round out that portion of his game, and I think that happens this year. So I know that might come as a little bit of a surprise, but my most improved player for this upcoming season is going to be Kevin Fiala.
Makes perfect sense. And that's what's either going to get him the big contract or a good contract, right? Because if he turns that corner that you're talking about now, and he's responsible defensively, he scores goals naturally. But like if it all clicks, he's not Kaprizov, but he's being paid really, really good. And if it doesn't all click, I think he's being paid good. I don't know. It's really, really good. All right. I'm going to go with a player that's going to surprise you as much as that one surprised me, because this is not a guy that needs to improve. He's coming off what was a really solid year. 19 goals, 30 points in the pandemic shortened 56 games. But I think the most improved player, Joel Eriksson Ek, and here's why.
Okay.
I think he's going to score a ton of goals. So he is on the line of Eriksson Ek, Kaprizov, Zuccarello. He is the one guy that goes to the net and does the dirty work, which you've talked about before. But the dirty work is going. Do you know how many opportunities now that presents? Like Fellino, Greenway, Eriksson Ek was, it was great. I mean, they worked their asses off, but it really was not a thing of beauty to watch, right? Like it was a lot of guys who worked hard, and there were scoring opportunities, and they scored goals, but I felt like they scored goals of opportunity from like transition and their own hard work. Think about it this way now. Eriksson Ek, who I believe was going to continue to just work hard and has skill, but he works hard, is now with two guys with really high skills. And that's going to present, and those guys are going to present him with opportunities. And I think he's going to be the benefactor of the greasy goals.
Yes.
And when we're talking about that line, think about the greasy goals. Like, it's not going to be like, oh, I only got 2 this year. We're talking about a ton of opportunities born from 2 guys. Kaprizov can score goals and make plays. And to your point, to start the show, Zuccarello can make a ton of plays. And so I think Eriksson Ek, I would not be surprised if he scores 25 to 30 goals. Just basically from what you said, which is working his butt off and being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, we kind of undersell that top line because we know Kirill Kaprizov is a special player, and we know that Matt Zuccarello, when he's on, is a phenomenal playmaker in his entire career. But then you forget about the guy in the middle, because this isn't Ryan Hartman in the middle, who I also believe is a nice player, but Joel Eriksson Ek is a better player and has more skill than Ryan Hartman does. So I think Ek, yes, we'll get rewarded with a ton of big goals there. And last year was a step forward. I mean, I think it was safe to say that going into the last season that, man, we really messed up. Brock Besser was the right pick. It's solidified. That conversation, that gap has been closed. And you could make a case. Brock Besser is a more special and more naturally offensively gifted player than Ek is. That is no question. But you can make a case that, well, because of his position, Joel Eriksson Ek might have actually now gone above Besser. Like you can make the case for both of them now because of Ek's excellent improvement season last year. If he takes even a bigger step forward this next season, well, then that conversation is completely different.
Yeah, the two things that especially struck me in watching the third preseason game between the Hawks and Wild a week ago, I believe it was Thursday, Dex.
Mm-hmm.
Stella, quit barking.
Stella,
she's
got thoughts on Ek. She's got thoughts on Ek.
She's big on ESPN being back now and TNT,
okay. Yep.
and she's betting games. I told her don't bet your dog.
Burn a hole in your pocket.
Idea. Yeah, exactly right. But you know what, Declan? Ultimately, kids don't listen. So the two things that struck me that stood out to me were, one, that first line is really good, and they finally, Hartman is exactly where he belongs now. I love that line. That line of Fellino, Greenway, Hartman, grind line. Great, right? But I think the reason why Bill Guerin sort of corrected you a little bit on your observation, which I agreed with, which is Eriksson Ek works hard. He's not flashy, but he scores goals and works his ass off. And I think Gary corrected you because in watching that game, I'm like, hold on a second here. There's more skill here. It's masked as, if this makes sense, it's masked as hard work, but it's actually some skill too.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's what we're going to see. And the second thing that really stood out to me is there is no excuse why that first power play doesn't score a ton. You should watch him move the puck. It's so much fun.
I'm excited, man. I'm excited.
I mean, it's great to see. All right. So most improved player for me, Eriksson Ek. Most improved player for you, Kevin Fiala. Who is, not to bring this down, but just a little bit, folks. Just a little bit. If you don't like the negativity, we'll be done with this quick. We'll be done with this quick.
Well,
who is your most disappointing player when it's all said and done?
I might be cutting open a vein here.
Go ahead.
And I want to preface this that when I mean most disappointing, I also really, really mean most likely to regress. So regression.
That's fair. Yeah.
Marcus Fellino. Marcus Fellino is going to be the player that regresses the most from last season. And
I don't even know you anymore.
I don't even know you
anymore.
I know, and there's probably a lot of fans who are really
We're all done
that
with
I'm
you.
going. I'm sorry.
I'm
very, very sorry.
Who's my new co-host?
Here's the thing with Fellino, because I think he is a very good defensive player. And last year, we saw him kind of burst out offensively and burst out into a bigger role. He scored 11 goals, 15 assists, 26 points in 39 games. If you map that out over 82, that's a 55-point season for Marcus Fellino.
Okay.
And on one hand, you can say, well, yeah, we all saw it. He was productive. He scored goals. That's great. But in his entire career, Marcus Fellino has never had more than 23 points in a season. And the number one reason that regression is coming to Marcus Fellino, like a ton of bricks, 27% shooting percentage last year.
Oh, the Jason Zucker thing.
7%. That is unsustainable for not just Marcus Fellino, for any player in the NHL. He barely shot the puck. He got rewarded with garbage goals and greasy goals. I don't think Marcus Fellino is going to be a detriment to the team next year. I want that also prefaced. Okay. But I think we have, because of his character and because of his role outside the room and everything he also brings on the ice, that we now have this heightened expectation that what we saw last year offensively is the new normal for Marcus Fellino.
Sure.
I would be willing to bet he scored 11 goals last year. He scored 11 goals in 59 games in the other shortened pandemic season. I would bet in 82 games, Marcus Fellino doesn't score more than 11 goals again. I like what Fellino brings. He is going to be a shutdown checking line player. I like that. But I think Wild fans should have a little bit of tepid expectations that he has a lot of unsustainable numbers for a player who isn't that kind of player. So that's my biggest disappointment. And I'm sorry if I've now you want a new co-host, but that's where I'm at with Marcus Fellino.
And that will not, what you just said is probably spot on. And it won't disappoint me one bit, because Marcus Fellino benefited last year by playing on a line with Ek, who again is more skilled than it looks like. And that line started to score. The expectation of that line, the only guy that I expect to get points or at least work hard every night, and I'm a little bit concerned, is Greenway. Fellino and Hartman are going to work their ass off. Ryan Hartman is not the player, to your point before, that Ek is, right? So I think you're probably spot on, but I don't care. Marcus Fellino is Marcus Fellino is never a guy that I get the stat sheet and I'm like, okay, what are the stats? What are the goals, the assists, the points? I never do. So you might be right. You probably are. And I say this with all due respect to the team and Fellino himself. I don't care. Like, because he shows up every night. And that's what I love. And that's what I felt like the first year he didn't do. I don't know. It's sort of weird what type of switch got flipped here, right? His first year was so disappointing, and I didn't see this. I saw it sometimes flashes. But yeah, with the line that I think the line that he's on now should basically do what the Wild expected his line would do last year, and it overachieved by a ton because they wouldn't move Eriksson Ek, and he was really good. So I'm with you, and I don't care.
Okay.
Do you care? Like, I just don't care because I don't expect him to score. And
right.
If that's a shutdown line, that's what I want them to be.
I 100% hear that. And that's what I expect too. I have those exact same expectations.
Okay.
I just want fans to realize that the offensive numbers you saw, box score wise,
yeah,
not even just eye test wise, box score wise, aren't numbers that Marcus Fellino can keep up. There's just next to no chance, because I'll be a non-zero guy here, next to no chance that he is that kind of player who puts up 55 points. I will gladly eat crow if he gets to 55 points by April, and I will come on this show, which I always do, and admit that I was wrong. But I do think Marcus Fellino ends up being a player who does disappoint offensively, but isn't a dragging down player and falls back to the player he was when he was first year.
Gotcha. Most disappointing player for me in the 2021-22 campaign. And this one's tough because there's a lot of guys that could slide backwards. There's lots of guys I don't know. Like we still don't know a ton about some players, but I'm going to go with a guy whose role I really don't know. And he had a really good first year, and I liked him. And we spent the entire season, it feels like, saying, are you going to give him a look like on the third line or second line? And they didn't, and they didn't, and they didn't. And I don't know what his role is going to be. If Rossi gets called up, Goudreau is going to stick. He's going to be demoted line-wise. So the guy I'm going to go with is Nico Sturm, who I like a lot.
Yeah.
But I don't know I can't tell what they think of him. He's still a fourth line guy. So like, he didn't come to camp with a new opportunity, right? Like, he didn't come in and they're like, you are now our second line, you're competing for the second line job. Much like with Fiala, there's clearly a disconnect sometimes between what we in the media and what the fans and what the team thinks. And there's some sort of, I don't mean to make this sound like a conspiracy theory, but Dex, it feels like there's some sort of distrust about his entire game, right? Like, he can score points and he can make plays, but there's definitely something that makes them feel that he remains a fourth line guy. And so if he's a fourth line guy, you're basically the first guy in line if a person gets called up or a trade is made to be a press box guy or in Iowa or moved a wing. So I don't even know if it's through a fault of his own, but because I don't know what to make of him and what the team thinks of him, I'm going with Nico Sturm because I think this show thinks more of his abilities.
I agree.
Than the people who make decisions think of his abilities if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Unfortunately, this isn't a perfect comparison, but it's kind of like Ryan Donato, where there's a skill set here, and I want to see him get an extended look, but he's also log jammed. And at the end of the day, as much as we love to play armchair GM and make line combinations that we think are the best, Billy and Dean know way more than we'll ever know. And it just seems like he's kind of buried in that. He's just kind of buried. I agree. I would like to get him an extended look. You and I have kind of sung his praises maybe even more than most other people have, and maybe even team players in that people in that organization. But yeah, I can see him just kind of being stuck in that role. And again, if he's stuck in that role, I don't think that's necessarily a disappointing player. It's a disappointment because we would like to see him at least get a shot at an elevation role.
Right. And they definitely, I think you're exactly right. They definitely think this guy's ceiling is this, and we are like, hey, why not explore it more? And they're like, no, this guy. So, all right, let's go to some team stuff now. How many points will the team have? And I'm not going to, and the next question is going to be your prediction for the Central Division standings. So let's just start off with, how many points do you think the Minnesota Wild will have this season?
96.
We're very
96 points is where I'm at. 100 seems awfully lofty.
Sure.
I think if everything goes according to plan, you don't have major injuries, Kaprizov is who he is, Fiala takes a next step, and you get that average goaltending still that we were talking about, should be about a 94 to 96 point team. But on the record, I am at 96. That's where I'm at. 95.
I think you're exactly right. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I think they're very good, and I don't think they're probably great. The Avs are going to be incredibly tough. Their division is tough. The Pacific is awful. The Pacific is going to be terrible. The Central is tough, but yep. So you say 96 points. I say 95 points. All right. Now give me your final Central Division standings.
All right. Top two, I think shouldn't come as a surprise. Colorado's number one. I have Minnesota too. Most projections, including Dom, from The Athletic, who I'm just going to call him Dom Luz, because he has the most impossible last name, and it's a whole bit as it is. Has the Wild at finishing second place in the division. A lot of analytics had them at second. It's going to be cutthroat between about the second and the fourth place team. You could make a case, no matter what order we give these in, that any of these teams could finish in a combination of 4, 3, and 2.
And they're all playoff teams because the Pacific stinks.
The Central's going to have a majority of them. So
I agree.
For me, I go Colorado, Minnesota.
Okay.
Third place team might be a little bit of a surprise, but I think they just had a hell of an offseason, and I think they're going to be better. Chicago. I think the Blackhawks are going to finish in third place in this division.
High expectations.
They look, Taves and Kane are still good players. Maybe they're not who they once were, but they're still very, very good players. Kirby Dach is turning into an absolute stud for them. I love his game. And then Seth Jones coming in to help their defense. Marc-Andre Fleury, the Flower will stabilize things for them after having kind of an up and down season at goaltending last year. Maybe I'm too all in on off-season moves, and this is a habit that a lot of executives and other talking heads fall into, of who made the sexiest moves in the offseason. You can make a case: Seth Jones, Marc-Andre Fleury,
Toronto Blue Jays,
Chicago Blackhawks. Like it makes a lot of sense to be all in on them, but I do think they've improved. So I have Chicago finishing in third place in this division. Okay. After that, I go Winnipeg. I think the Jets are still a pretty damn good team. I like them offensively. Connor Hellebuck had a hell of a year last year, obviously, too. They're still pretty good.
Defense after that, improved again now.
Yeah, they should be good. After that, I go Dallas. I like the Stars, and I just can't figure it out. I could see the Stars finishing in third place. I can see the Stars finishing in sixth place. I don't know who they are. I think the Wild are a better rounded team, but they have sleeping giant potential in them. Yes. I just don't know if that giant is there. I just don't know if that dragon's going to come out, if you will. So I had the Stars finishing in fifth place, and then St. Louis, Nashville, Arizona round out my stuff. Round out my division. I think Arizona and Nashville are far and away the two worst teams in this league. I put the Blues just kind of as default above Nashville. So my Central Division standings, I go Colorado, Minnesota, Chicago, Winnipeg, Dallas, St. Louis, Nashville, and then Arizona, who are also just a mess. So that's my Central Division standings.
Okay. So I'm with you completely. The Avs are the best team. The Avs win it. Now here's my only question, though. I do have a question here.
Thinking where you're going.
Philip Grubauer, who is now with the Kraken, had a spectacular season with the Avs. And you got to have goaltending. Darcy Kemper found himself and is in Colorado now, Declan Goff, because of how he played with the Coyotes, where there is no pressure. Like, there's internal pressure from the team, but the fans don't give a damn. The expectations are zero, right? Like, that is a goaltender's paradise as far as not getting in your own head. Colorado is as different as it can be. Expectations huge. You know, you look in front of you and there's Rantanen and McKinnon and Landeskog and Makar and just, you know, but I mean, guys who are like, we got to win a cup. We got to win a cup.
It's now
we haven't gotten close enough. We got to win a cup.
Yeah.
And you're putting all your eggs in the Kemper basket, who, by the way, melts down against the Minnesota Wild, like the Wild, because they gave up on him, get in his head.
Yeah.
This is dangerous to me. And I think it's more of a concern in the playoffs. Like, I could see him imploding. But I'm also just curious to see, like, opening night on, how he takes that stress, because you ain't with the Coyotes now. The desert's long gone, dude.
Mm-hmm.
You're with a team that is a favorite of a lot of people to win the Stanley Cup.
Two things off Kemper quick before you give the rest of my standings. Number one, he's clearly a better goaltender than he was when he was in Minnesota. That's obvious. He's turned into a good goaltender.
Yeah.
But Darcy is the quintessential head case goaltender.
Right.
Is he not?
No, that's what I'm saying.
He not, like, if he wants to be, he could be a Vezina candidate goalie. But he gets in his damn head and he can melt down.
The Wild chirped him. In that game, like, 3 years back. It was Zucker and Koivu and somebody else. They chirped him and he, like, went off and he played terrible that game.
Yeah.
Yes. So I mean,
That's true.
how can you entrust a Stanley Cup run, a Stanley Cup team? Like, you have every other piece and your goaltending got worse. So anyway, but I'm still I think if the Kemper thing becomes a real problem, it's going to come in the spring, not now. So I go Avs first.
Okay.
You brought this up, and I agree completely, but I'm going to say that they bounce back after a very tough year filled with hardships last year, because I think that this team is good. I'm going to go Dallas Stars second.
Okay.
I'm going to go Dallas Stars second. Goaltending addressed again. Suter in the right role is good if he understands that role. Now, that's all up for debate, but Sagan and Ben, like, they've still got, to your point before, Declan, firepower. They've still got good players. I'm going to say that they might not be the team that went to the Stanley Cup Finals in the bubble, but they certainly aren't the team that was a disaster that, you know, because of COVID, blah, 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 fell apart last year. So I'm going to say Dallas Stars second.
Okay.
And then I will, as the last lock playoff team, the Wild third. And I could, and you might be right, but I think the Wild is and this is tough, but I think the Wild is at least the third best team. They might not be second best. And I don't think with the Avs there that they're the best. So I go Colorado, Dallas, the Wild lock into those top three playoff spots.
Okay.
My fourth place team is the Jets. Defense is improved. It's weird. Like 5 years back with Bufflin and that group, that blue line was so damn good. And then Bufflin just sort of, I don't know, he just sort of quit. He's just gone now.
Yeah.
And they were up against the cap, so they traded guys. And the defense last year was a disaster. Who's the slappy from the Wild that the Jets picked up and he was playing last year? Nice enough guy. But I mean, it was the equivalent of like Brad Hunt.
Yeah, I forget.
It wasn't Brad Hunt, but it was the equivalent of like, I was watching a game and I'm like, is that guy from the Wild? And sure enough, so the blue line's been addressed. Goaltending good. Again,
Anthony Bietto.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bitetto, I think it was. But anyway,
Bitetto,
they have a good roster, which I think is far more solidified now. So I go Colorado, Dallas, Wild, the Jets, and then Chicago. I don't know here. I don't know. The Blackhawks are weird. All the reasons that you gave why they'd be improved are accurate, but I just don't know. So and like Seth Jones is a really good player. Does Taves just bounce back though and go back to being the guy that he was pre-illness, or does he, come back? And because I think he's 32 now, so he's not a kid. I mean, Kane is still going to be Kane. I also have questions about at what point does the flower start to fall off?
True. It's a gamble. It's a gamble for sure. So
I put Chicago 5th, St. Louis 6th. I think St. Louis's run to the Cup, lightning in a bottle. Like, I'm not sure about that now.
I don't know about him either,
lightning in a bottle. And Binnington also off his rocker. Yeah. So, I mean, Binnington got in a zone in that Stanley Cup run that was phenomenal, Flacco-like.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, he was so disposable to the Blues, I believe the year before that, Dex, that they sent him down and lent him to the Bruins AHL team, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't just like turn into a Hall of Fame goaltender. There's a reason why.
I agree.
So I put the Blues, what would be 6th, Nashville Coyotes. And at that point, I don't care. But yeah, I think you called this, to your credit, to do a callback for you. I think you called this on Nashville falling off hard 2 years ago. Right?
2 seasons ago, I was like,
because I'm like, no, they're good.
Yeah,
and you're like,
no, if they weren't going to do it, it was not. Yeah, they're treading water. Best case scenario, that's them.
And then the Coyotes are going to be terrible. I think that they're probably going to try and move Phil Kessel at some point soon.
Yeah.
No, thank you. Don't call Bill Guerin. He will not pick up. We don't want anything to do with Kessel, but he probably gets moved, and they're awful, and they're eventually here, I think, being evicted from their building, and they just stink. Stanley Cup matchup, Declan Goff, followed by your champion.
You know what? I'm just going to keep this a little simpler. I'm just going to say Bruins and Knights. I think Boston Bruins and the Vegas Golden Knights. I think the Knights get back.
That's gutsy, man, because I think Boston might.
You think Boston implode?
I think I don't know if they're going to completely implode, but I think there's some big questions there. But I mean, it's your pick.
It's my prediction.
And you've been right before, and I've been totally wrong. So
I'm going to go Bruins Knights, and I think Vegas gets it done. I think Vegas finally, and I say finally, as in they've been in the league for 4 years and they've only gone to conference finals and a Stanley Cup in their first season. But they get it done this time. I know they lost Flower, but I still believe that Leonard is the answer in net, and that team is ready to rock. I know they're without Alex Tuck for a little bit. He'll still be injured for about a month or so. But if Vegas isn't going to do it now, when? Again, like it's kind of like if not now, when? And they put a lot of resources into trades.
Yep.
And they paid a hefty fee to get this expansion roster. Seattle has taken a different route on how to construct their roster. Yep. But I think the Vegas Golden Knights get it done. They win the Cup.
Interesting.
That's where I'm at.
I love their talent. They're a weird team now. They're a weird team.
Mm-hmm.
They're the playoffs. Like, how do you lose to Montreal? You were set up.
I know.
Montreal is probably not now a playoff team. And that one shocked me. That one absolutely shocked me. Okay. I am going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to give you a matchup. Well, I'm actually going to go out on a limb in the Western Conference. The Eastern, I'm not. But I'm going to give you a matchup again of the team that ended the drive for 5. Islanders, early 80s, okay?
All right.
Your matchup is going to be Zach Parise and the New York Islanders, who I like a lot now.
Yeah,
like I think, and they're
my team too.
New building. They're set to pop. I think that they against, and this sounds crazy, but man, it'd be fun. Edmonton Oilers.
There it is. You gave me so much crap last year for picking the Oilers to make it.
The Edmonton Oilers this year, because they hadn't come to fruition yet. They made more moves now.
Okay.
Now the goaltending, you got to go out. You might have to go trade for a goalie. But to your point about the Golden Knights, Declan, if the Oilers aren't going to pop, when are they? You've got Draisaitl. You've got McDavid.
Nugent Hopkins.
Yeah. Seriously, my man. Like, when are you going to, like, at some point in time, this talent, and yes, goaltending needs to be much improved and consistent, and the blue line does too. But with that core group, there's no excuse anymore.
No, I know.
So I am going to go. Okay. So yes, after giving you crap last year, I'm going to come back and I'm going to go off the rails in the Western Conference, because I think the expectation is the Oilers are the second best team in the Pacific to the Knights. Not
Yeah.
surprising. But I'm going to go with they make a run to the Stanley Cup Finals. Might
That was my
involve a trade.
those were my 2 picks last year. Islanders, Oilers. That was my pick.
I'm going with it this year.
Okay. All right.
I'm going with it this year. I'm not going to give you Colorado. Colorado's boring. Colorado. And
Yeah.
I do think Kemper is going to implode completely. I'm going to go with those 2 teams, and the winner of the Stanley Cup will be the Oilers.
Okay.
That's right. That's
Okay.
right.
Okay, the Oilers.
I'm bored with I think the Oilers are at a point. I really believe that quietly, like, their kids aren't getting younger.
No.
And the one thing, I mean, what solidifies greatness, Declan? Championships. McDavid is, I think, unquestioned the best player, and there's some good ones now. I mean, there's some great players, but I think without a question, like, the best player in this league, Connor McDavid, right? At some point in time, it has to result in playoff success. It can't just be Hart Trophy, Art Ross Trophy. Forget all that.
No.
Do you know what Gretzky did? Gretzky won Stanley Cups.
Gretzky won cups. Gretzky won
cups in Edmonton. So, yes, I'm going with your pick from last year. I think it happens this year.
Okay, yeah. So I don't blame you. I think McDavid and Draisaitl, if those dudes aren't going to do it now, when the hell are you going to do it? Edmonton fan base is ready for that, so you may as well. I like it. I would love that Stanley Cup. I think actually nationally ratings wise, they would be freaking out over Edmonton and Long Island. But yes, that'd be a fine Stanley Cup to me.
You're probably right. McDavid helps though.
That's true.
2 things off last night quickly. First thing, and it showed up again. Can we please have Stanley Cup banners raised a couple nights before a team plays its first game?
Yeah,
have the players show up in street clothes. Let fans in, charge them $5, donate it to charity. When's the last time that went well? And by the way, I don't care about their banner. And this happens so many times, right? A team is flat. Everyone has to wait too long. I want to see the best matchup possible last night between the best 2 teams, right?
Yeah.
The Tampa Bay Lightning were sleepwalking through 2 periods and not that great in the third. Can we please pivot to having a night where everyone's in street clothes to raise your banner and get the emotion done then? And opening night, can we face the puck off for the purposes of the 2021-22 campaign season? I'm sick of trying to do this whole thing in one night. You delay the game, and then inevitably it seems like the team that is raising the banner is flat.
Yeah, and also it'd be nice if the whole team was present. Like the offseason, players leave and free agency, players get traded.
That's
I would
another
love
great
all.
point.
You want all the team there. You want the entire team there. And then if you're
right.
That's another reason. No, I'm with you for this idea.
Amen.
Make it happen.
Amen. Okay. ESPN back in the league, doing the league after 17 years, right? I believe that they talked about that about 87 times during the course of the game. After 17 years, your thoughts on telecasts numbers 1 and 2. And by the way, TNT will launch its regular season schedule with a doubleheader tonight. We're recording this on Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah, I love that NHL is back on ESPN. I tweeted this out last night, and by all means, I know I could be old takes or old tweets exposed, which you do every Thursday on Mackie and Judd, by the way. It just feels with the NHL back on ESPN, and there's bound to be hiccups, that hockey for the first time, Judd, and I don't know really when to quantify this. It feels like the sport is heading in the best direction possible to the common sports fan. And a lot of that has to do because you're on the mothership now. And look, it's ESPN. They ignored you for 17 years. Bettman's line was awesome, I believe, to Linda Cohen yesterday about this exact topic. For as much as they ignored us for 17 years, I'm paraphrasing here, I have no doubt that they're going to now lift us back up. I think this is a perfect situation for the league. This is great. And the ESPN Plus, if you're a Disney subscriber, and maybe I'm just the target demo that they've been looking for. I don't know why you're having an issue with the box. That shouldn't be the issue. I got to get a new cable box. They said. But I'm not coming into your home to try to figure this out because you won't let me happening.
No, I'm not going to.
But I think this is the best thing for the league, and I love that it's back. I can pick holes on play-by-play stuff. I think Emily Kaplan between the benches was amazing. AJ is also great between the benches. Their analysts are good. But in general, just for eyeballs on the sport. We had this conversation when the pandemic hit, when the league shut down. One of the first things we talked about, make the move to ESPN, have this conversation. Let's kick around this idea. NBC did a great job, and they did a great job cultivating the cult sport that is hockey. But hockey will never get the respect and never get the attention it deserves unless it's on something like ESPN.
Because you need ancillary shows. It's the shows, right? Like now they've got the point. Oh my God, hockey, right? Like that's
it's great.
All right, quickly. I've got notes. So what you said is perfect. So I think we just took care of the overarching view of ESPN being back in the hockey game. Number one, score box. I need shots on goal.
Yep. I think
there's no reason not to have it.
They'll have that on there. I think they'll put that on there. I could go without that. That doesn't bug me.
Okay, but I'm just saying it's a small small thing. I got notes. It's a small thing. Second thing, Emily Kaplan's a rising star. Either give her a bigger role during the games where you throw it down to her more or allow her to comment, or put her on the set. I want more. She's really good. Like she is a rising star. She's young. She's hip. She's cool. Like but I mean, I think it was very planned. So like, I don't think that she could just talk. So it's like, let's throw it down to her on between the benches, and then she'd give an update or a story. I want more. So find a role for her that makes her a star. Don't be like, well, once in a while we'll go down to reporter person. Seriously. Okay, that's my second one. Ray Ferraro, analyst, who has worked with the guy for a long time. I believe it's Gord Miller in Canada on TSN. Ray Ferraro is outstanding. I love him. Sean McDonough, though, I think it's very clear, hadn't done hockey for a very long time. He used to do the Bruins on Nesson, like way back when. If he's your top guy, you need more of a hockey top guy. And part of what bugged me last night was that's a game where you were like Ray Ferraro has to get the questions, right? Like, I want more Ray. And McDonough was doing traditional play-by-play a lot, and it felt like Ray was trying to find his place. Like, Ray should be the featured player, and McDonough or the play-by-play person should be, setting him up, teeing him up. So, and I don't know flat out that McDonough is the best choice. I know that he's employed by the network. So I think what you need there is you probably need to eventually examine your top choice there. Let's see what else I got here. Oh, okay. Off the Manning football thing, because we've seen it, right? Like the Manning football thing is great. Here's what I want. Pull the same exact stunt on a couch, watching a game that they're showing us. Messier, Chelios, Weeks, Ferraro, no play-by-play. Talk about the game. Talk about the game. And we don't need to see them constantly. Like, we can see the game full screen. Because if you shrink hockey up, it's more difficult. But give us a full screen, but allow those guys to dissect the game. During the game, Dex. During the game. And then the last thing, Butchergrass, better than I expected.
He was on his A game yesterday, but I
always thought his college play-by-play was weak. I thought he was good.
He's a good ambassador for hockey, and he's a good ambassador for that network. His play-by-play, I'm with you, has usually been iffy. Yesterday, he did a damn good job. He deserves praise. He deserves praise.
Yep. Love the music, too.
Look at that.
Oh, and one last thing. Information person. You need a Drager, a Friedman, a Schefter. Give me a reckless speculation person, because you don't have that now. Give me a reporter who mines stuff and gives me reckless speculation, because everybody in the Mackey and Judd's Hockey Show family needs reckless speculation. That's all.
I like it. I like it.
Right.
That was a meaty episode here.
That's a big episode. Season preview. Declan, go ahead.
Pass, shoot, score.